how long are you in Palm Springs for, Doug?
I don't know. I never intended to even go to Arizona or to Utah or to New Mexico, but when Corona happens, because when do we ever get that much time?
Oh, you're telling
And the
me I
thing
went
for
to
me is it's
Colorado.
not about it's about having the time to actually be away from my emails and my texts where nothing work sensitive can come up. And that's what it's been about for me. Like, and I feel so present and and I've it feels so much better. And I'm like, I forget as a human, I think we all need more of that.
Oh my, you're speaking to my soul, sir, for real. I actually felt really guilty at the beginning of this whole thing because I was like checked out. I was like, I'm gonna go to sleep for a few days. And now I'm getting to the point where I'm like starting to get amped up to get back into it, even though I don't even know what's gonna happen, but I'm like, feel so refreshed at this point.
Yeah.
I think Pascal, you were kind of talking about in that one YouTube video I saw that you um like after you did your first feature, you were like, I'm gonna take a break, percolate a little bit.
Yeah, it was just because of the experience, because it was like 4 years of my life to prepare everything and to do it all, and it was fine. But just sometime with the experience of the actor, I had kind of a backlash a little bit on set with them. And that's the thing, for me it was my first feature film. When you do music videos or if you do short film, it's one thing, but if you do a feature film for 23 days alone around the world with just a sound person, it's just a completely different beast. So yeah, I was just kind of lost the passion a little bit. So that's why I took like 1 year and a half to just say, fuck it, I almost quit.
Yeah, I had a really similar experience on a game show. I was working on a game show for the Game Show Network, and it was like 17 hours a day. We were filming 6 episodes a day.
Ah, yeah, you just lose sense of who you are at that point.
Yeah, it was. I didn't even know if I was driving to work or from like home. I was like
Yeah,
driving in
that's
the.
the thing. Even in my film, I've never shot long hours. I think the longest was like 8 hours, but it's the atmosphere
Well,
with the.
that you get more and more insane to me in the best way.
I know. Well, you use natural light, right? That's part of it.
Yeah, it's all natural light, one camera, and that's it. But yeah, the goal is just to find the right collaborator, and that's what I did from my first one to the second one. I'm super proud of my first one, but this one I knew exactly what kind of personality I wanted.
Yeah. Well, I think we're ready to get started. So I guess I'll introduce myself real quick. My name is Kylie Malusnik. I am a producer and I've done a little bit of directing on the side. I live in Los Angeles and have been really involved in independent filmmaking. So I'm super excited to talk today to Pascal Payant and Doug Haley. And you know what, Pascal, if you want to give yourself a little bit of an introduction, I'd love to hear a little bit about what you're all about.
Yeah, hello guys, hello everyone. My name is Pascal Payant. I'm a movie director from Montreal. I mostly shoot in Europe and the States, and I just released my new feature film called Stolen Season, and I guess we'll talk about it.
Awesome. Doug, what about you? I know we've got a whole cast of jobs over there for you, literally.
My name is Doug Haley, and I traditionally work in the feature film space in casting. I've started getting into producing, which is kind of the natural segue of casting directors. But I feel very lucky and varied because I've worked everywhere from budgets on 20,000 on up to about 18 million. So I've had a lot of variety in the field. And what's been interesting, I think like a great piece of advice or nugget to give anyone, especially like you younger people coming into the business, is it's true, man. Mo money, mo problems. Notorious B.I.G. said it right. So it's not like you just get to a certain budget level or a certain space in your career and life becomes easier. It actually just presents constantly new and varied challenges, which is why it's like a job that you're always learning.
Oh yeah, you have money? Well, let me talk to you. Let me give you some more options, more problems, like you said.
Yeah, more, yeah. More insurances, more, yeah, anything and everything, yeah.
Yeah, which is why I find Pascal so interesting and incredibly insightful. Because I mean, I guess you can talk about it better than I can, but under 10K for feature films around the world, I feel like most people would think that is just bonkers. Like I can't even fathom having the willpower to go that, like Tell me about it.
Yeah, so my first two feature film, it was done for around $40,000. And when I finished that, I did my taxes and I checked the budget. I said, where did that money go? And so I checked everything, and then I realized like 10 grand to pay the actors, 12 grand for the hotel, insurance, camera, flying, and then mostly on that $40,000, the film itself cut 5 grand. And that's why I said I don't want to do that again. It just makes no sense. And so, because the thing, the more, like you Doug said, the more money you have, the harder it is to get. The longer you're gonna wait, then it's gonna be frustrating. And that's one thing I didn't want to do. So that's why as soon as I finished the new Unstolen Season, I went to Europe and I did a new feature film called April Skies for $7,000, and it was shot in Paris, Sweden, and Iceland. And that was my challenge. I said I want to do it. I want to make this kind of budget where I know I can make it and I don't have to stress about money, that I know I can just use my own money and just go, and you don't have to depend on others. You don't have to, that's the thing. If you have an idea, you can now go shoot and do it.
You have to
Of
answer
course,
to other people.
yeah, but you need, of course, you need your experience. You need to know exactly what you're doing. And from my first to my second to my third, I really learned a lot. But mostly, I've done the film the same way. It's always no crew. It's just me and a sound woman, a boom operator who's doing everything, all shot natural lighting. And mostly, that's my goal of I want to make film that you can do under 10 grand. Because first, if you make films without a stars, the chance that you're going to make a shitload of money, it's like zero. So you have to be aware of that if you have no name, no nothing, it's all about the concept. You have something original, or, so if you're going to do something and risk something, then make it for cheap. At least, you can make some money back and you're not going to go broke. And then after that, you can go make another one, because that's the thing. If you wait for another 50 grand, $100,000, then that's where you wait 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, maybe never, because you just hope to win the lottery. So that's why now the fourth one that I'm shooting soon, it's done under 10 grand. The same thing for my fifth. For a while now, I think I'm just gonna do that like that, because it's fast, I'm excited, I have total control, I can do whatever I want, and you don't have to wait or depend on others. And mostly that's the most crucial part, is that don't wait or depend.
I know. I find that absolutely incredible. And what I honestly am most impressed by you is the fact that you're bold enough to say, this is my signature style and this is how I'm going to do it. Like, I know people are doing film and short form and everything off to the side, like in a maybe more traditional way, but you were bold enough to be like, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. And so how did you maybe get the courage to come up with your style? Like,
yeah, so I'm 39 right now, and I've been doing this for 20 years, and mostly that's all. Now it's different because of the technologies really changed. Now you can take your phone and shoot something. The DSLR costs nothing, but before you had shitty camera. So, but the goal was to always do music videos, do short film, really practice, because I always saying that if you cannot make a 3 or 4 minute short film badass, there's no way you're gonna make a feature film badass. So it's always, this is where you go practice, learn, mess up, and you really start finding your style. You're finding your signature. So that's mostly the most important part. And then once you have that voice and you have that style, then I would suggest to go do a feature film, because now I know you're prepared. You're not gonna discover that while you're shooting something big as a feature film, because I think there's nothing worse to watch a feature film without a voice, without a signature. If you just watch something that is generic, and personally, I think it's boring. So that's why, at least, I don't do the best film at all, but at least I know that I got my style, that I got my little lane of doing my thing. And so far it's been working. But yeah, you need to have that drive, that passion. And for me, I live in Montreal. Just to give you an example of, sometimes people can be just so stupid, in a sense where Montreal to New York is 6-hour drive. And I hear so much all my life saying, I wish one day I'll go to New York City. It's a 6-hour drive. Just drive there. You know what I mean? So it's that kind of a mentality of, you have to dream about that. So that's the thing. You either have that passion and drive, or you don't. And it's not something you learn. I guess it's just in your personality.
Yeah, I am.
I add on to something that he said, because he hit a nail on the head. And what what kills me are when you see so many great directors or scripts that should be made, and because of exactly what you're saying, waiting for the right level of name to come on to trigger the financing. I have been attached to movies for 5.5 years that are poignant and brilliant, and that's why I have so much respect and admiration for Pascal, who just goes out there and makes it happen, because I truly believe the world needs that. We need these voices, we need these artists, but
Yeah.
all the time they get cut off by the financing. For example, a film that I love and was obsessed with the script and would always have one or two names coming on, could never get the third to trigger the financing, so I could never start working with it. And it's Will De Los Santos, who's an incredible writer. He wrote Spun, which is a movie a lot of people know. And this particular script dealt with life in downtown LA with an LGBTQ member of a Latino family. And the family is a gang family in East Hollywood, and he goes off into like West Hollywood to discover his identity in the gay scene there. And so you have, like East LA gangsters interacting with modern Hollywood, and this and it shines a light on so many interesting people and paths of life that you don't get to see represented in mainstream TV. And it hurts my heart that that film hasn't been made yet.
Yeah.
Or, all because of that one issue that you hit the nail on the head with.
But that's one thing I would say. That's the thing. If you see right now, it's been 5 years, you've been trying to make something. Because for my first feature film, I was trying, that's the thing, I didn't know anything. So I was like, oh, my first one is going to be for $300,000. And I didn't know. It was just like I was making a budget out of my head. And I think 300 is going to be fine. But then I realized after 4 years trying to get that money, it's not going to work. It's not going to happen. So what can you do to move forward? Then you change the whole story or you shrink it down. So after that, the last one, the first one was around 40, 50 grand. And I changed some stuff to make it work. And now with the experience, I know I could have made it probably for 10 grand. So you have, the only thing mostly is you have now the new way or you have the classical way. And I think, Doug, what you're saying is that for you, you're kind of go with the classical way when you have the name, where the financing, then you have the trucks and you have the da. But that's where all the money goes mostly. But I understand that's kind of the classical way to do it and it makes sense. But if after a while it doesn't work, I think it's only fair to just say, okay, cool. How can you pivot and go in another direction where you don't have to wait for that big money? You know what I mean?
Well, it's not working anymore because you're not seeing any films being made for 5 to 10 million anymore. Right. And that is such a great space to be in. Now it's Marvel and it's Tron and it's epic or it's complete shoestring budget with as little liability as possible.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to your point earlier, Pascal, the fact that you have to really understand what you're doing beforehand before you can jump into making a film for $10,000, because you don't know where the money, like when you're first starting, where all the money goes. You think the money goes to the actual film, but no, you've got hotels making, $10,000 off of you every week that you're filming. So yeah, you got to know, I always say you got to know the rules of the game before you can play and break the rules.
And again, if I was shooting in that's the thing, a lot of people say, oh, why not? Why don't you shoot in Montreal? It's going to be way cheaper. It's not going to be really way cheaper. You're saving a little bit, but it's going to cost around maximum $10,000 or so. But I know that if I can just take local actors from different city, I can travel and take the Sun Girl, and it's going to be kind of the same thing. So I prefer to shoot something in a remote location where it's sexier, or you know what I mean. Just for some people, Montreal, they're going to say, "Oh my God, it's amazing." But for me, since I live there, I'm using that excuse to go travel. So that's why I went to Sweden, Iceland, Paris. The new one I'm doing Spain, and so it's like, hey, I'll go anywhere. So for me, it's an excuse to go travel. But at the same time, I want to be excited to discover new places because I'm using those locations as that's my prop, that's my set. So I'm using those kind of real locations. So the same thing with Paris, when Notre Dame de Paris burned, I used that in my new feature film, April Skies. And the first day I arrived, the Notre Dame of Paris was burning. So I used that in my film. So you use all those elements that cost nothing. So mostly so a lot of people always ask me, how you know, your location costs so much money. I said, no, mostly I shoot outside, natural lighting. It's all Iceland is just land. So if you cannot make something beautiful in Iceland, you suck. You know what I mean? It's like you have the most beautiful painting
You're the
canvas.
problem, not the money. Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. So technically it doesn't cost anything. You just need to know what you're doing. But with the experience of shooting, you know, music videos or short or whatever, then for me, I know one thing that I'm good at is making beautiful images. One thing that I had difficult with was writing script, because I was so stuck visually that when it was time to, hey, I need to make something cool character wise and story wise, it was like, oh, but what about the visual? So that's where I came from my first feature film to my second. The first one is so strong visually with the white desert and the castle in France and stuff like that. It looks so stunning. But then the second one, Stolen Season, I said, I don't want to think about any kind of visual, any kind of music, any kind of whatever. I just really want to focus on story, character. And then I'm sure that's going to be my test. Can I make anything beautiful without kind of preparation? So I picked Portland, Oregon, and it worked beautifully. And you know, it worked for the story, it worked for the character, and then you tweak, you know, the motocross in the film or in the trailer, it was not supposed to be that. But then when I saw Portland and I discovered that city, I've changed the script, I've modified the script to find new thing that can work well. So that's the thing. The good thing and bad thing when you're working with such a low budget is that you have to be always on your toes to improv, to switch around things around, because you don't control those elements, you know? Yeah, you can have some location, but mostly all the location in the film are free. It's favors, it's you ask permission, they say yes, but then if something falls through, you have to completely switch around, and you know, you hope that it's gonna be for the best. But so far I've been lucky. But and the negative thing, when you just have, let's say, 10 grand, you have to write a story for 10 grand. You know what I mean? You cannot have vampire flying in the skies and stuff like, you know, you cannot have that. So you write your story based on what you have, what you can have. And so sometimes it can be limiting. Sometimes it can be frustrating. Even for me, when I'm writing something, I'm like, no, I can't. You know, so you have this kind of excitement, but then you have to pull back. No, you cannot do it. Or sometimes you take the idea and it's more, how can I make a cheap version out of it? So.
Yes. And I mean, I'm sure your next film that's coming out, what, next year, later this year, we'll put both of those together. And I'm very interested to hear, Doug, from you about how might somebody go about casting in that type of genre. Like, if you're not going to get a like huge name actor for in that budget range, but like, and you're shooting all around, like, what's your advice towards that?
In Pasquale's genre, specifically with that budget tier, it would be about finding the best actor who wants to. So you would expect to find someone with no name value, or get the script to somebody who has the time off. So a lot of people work part of the year on TV shows where they make their bread and butter. And if they're making $30,000 to $60,000 a week during that, they can find a passion project on their hiatus. However, the problem you get into with that is then the agents who have their actor who is worth X amount of dollars and saying, oh, no, that might be their passion project, but I want my bonus next year. I want to elevate within the agency. So we're not going to do that, because then I'll go into the boardroom and look like an idiot. They're still continuously trying to find higher budget projects. So what I have always done, that has been my greatest success and tool of achievement, or advice I could give to the viewers watching today, is if they want to do that, put as much money from the cast budget as possible into one or two names. And when I say name, I don't mean, you know, Tom Cruise. I mean people that you turn on TV and would recognize, or your mom and dad would recognize. That would be considered a name in Hollywood. And still, you're still not going to be able to afford their quote. But if you can circumnavigate their agent, I know I shouldn't be saying this, but this is what I've always done. I've always been 1 or 2 degrees of separation away from who my director really wanted or envisioned in that role. So you find a way to get that script to their neighbor or to their friend, or to them at a party or at an event, or, you know, you have your mutual friend connect you for a coffee and just say, like, there's something once that actor is emotionally invested in that part, 9 times out of 10, they'll be calling their agent and saying, I want to do this, make it happen. And the agent comes back and then says, we need a lot more money. And I say, sorry, we don't have it. And then he goes back to the actor and says, sorry, they don't have it. And then the actor says, we'll close the deal, make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you know, it's always kind of cliche, but when you say, you know, it's all about connection and personal favor, that's kind of true, you know?
I used to throw a lot of events, a lot of parties in Hollywood. So therefore, I had the privilege of getting to meet a lot of people in a very short amount of time and maintaining
that's
those
the
friendships.
benefit.
And then you kind of look on your Facebook or Instagram, you go, oh, my friend is friends with this. And that's exactly who we're. So it's been a lot of bypassing the traditional system, which Pascal, I know that you are a genius at. And in my little way, that's how I figured out how to do it and make some films that I'm very proud of.
Yeah, that's the thing. And now it's everything just changed. And like you said, now it's all about either super micro budget or super high end but that's the thing. So, but yeah, overall, you just have to adapt. And if you cannot adapt, you're going to have so much time. Just you're gonna have the hardest time trying to make something. And but that's the thing on my film. I personally, I don't care about names because there's a thing, names make it so much complex and it kind of really breaks the flow unless I really know someone personally that understand what I'm doing. Otherwise, yeah, when you start dealing with agents and everything, it's just a cycle of nonsense. But if you have the money to really go pay them and it's easier, fine. But if you don't and you really want to make, you know, something under 10 grand, you have to be realistic of what you have and what you don't have.
Mm. Yeah, I did kind of the same thing, not so much as throwing parties, but I had joined as many like guilds and academies and everything I could right when I moved to LA so I could, you know, grow my network. I always say that the best way to grow your network is to share your network. So, so Pascal, how do you go about like living in Montreal? How do you go about finding people outside of your initial like your network in Montreal?
Yeah, I suck at networking in a sense where this is my networking way of I'm in my basement, but then when it's time to make a film, let's say Paris or Sweden or whatever, either it's through agency that, yeah, sometimes I write them, but that's the thing, like just to go back to your point, Doug, is that there's sometimes you write to the agency and they say no, but then you talk to them, the actor directly, and they love the idea. And it happens before to me. But yeah, so mostly, that's kind of the tricky, but you know, social media is the way to go. Either you find them through agencies or you just you contact them directly. You present yourself. This is what I'm doing. This is my work. If you love what I'm doing, then you will love collaborating with me. Then I present the project. And mostly I've been pretty lucky. It's been kind of easy doing that, but I would suggest Facebook, Instagram, and there's a thing for Sweden. For April Skies, what I was doing, I just went on Swedish website and I was just searching for actor. And then you see a picture that you like, then you do your research, you contact them, and you present yourself. And that's the thing. When it's that far, let's say Sweden, Iceland, they look at you like, what? Who's that guy? What? Who are you?
Yeah.
And,
Is this a real address?
yeah, exactly. People just think it's bullshit, but it's not. That's the thing. Yeah, that's why for me, I take the time to really present who I am, and then the trust starts to appear, and then you start talking and everything. But Stolen Season, I use casting breakdown. That's mostly how I found everyone. And the actress Abby Sigward was from New York. The kid was Matthew Bilodeau was in Los Angeles. But then for me, it's all about finding those personalities that you gel well, because not everyone wants to make an indie film like that when it's just, hey, it's going to be you, a sound girl, and we're going to be on set. I take care of them, you know, it's like my baby. But in the end, you just have to understand what I'm doing, and sometimes it's going to be not long hours, but it's going to be demanding that you have to take a lot of responsibility. You know, it's not about divas. I need my little winter coat because I'm cold, and I need my little makeup refreshment. No, it's like you're going to do a lot of stuff yourself, and I'm always going to be there backing you. But it's a team effort that we're going to war and get ready. So for me, it's to find those kind of personality or actors. They understand that, and if you don't, that's fine. But that's why you have to take the time for me to talk to them and really know them personally, because it's not like, hey, I have $5,000, $10,000, I'm gonna pay you to come on my set and that's it. It's a job, goodbye. No, mostly people are doing it either for free or scale. So the approach is going to be completely different. The way you present yourself, and because there's a thing, even if I wanted to go to a casting director, mostly because I don't have either the proper way to go in. And Doug, I'm sure you're the best person to talk about it. If you don't have the right connection to just contact a casting director, they're mostly gonna say no, or they're gonna say right now, do you have, how much money do you have for your actors? Because for them, they want to get paid. You need to pay the actors. Everyone needs to get paid. So just that alone is probably gonna be your $10,000. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Doug,
Pascal,
well,
if I may first, I'm just curious to know, since usually, you hire my department and then we filter everything for you. I'm very curious, how many tapes did you watch for your two leads?
For Stolen Season, we had, I think it was 65,000 submission from Breakdown. And then after that, that's the thing I don't understand sometimes, but I kind of do, is that from this 65,000, it went down to maybe 2,000 that I selected. And then in those 2,000, I had maybe 200 videos, because that's the thing. A lot of submission, it's either agents who is just like, who's that project? Oh, okay, cool, I'm summoning. And then when they have a response, then they go check and see the details. Oh, does it pay? Low pay? We don't want that for my client. And maybe that client would have died to do it, but the agent says, no, it's not paying a lot, it's not paying enough. Who cares? I don't care who's that director, whatever. It's all about money. So again, in that 200, then maybe it went down to 50 that was really serious. And then you have maybe 3, 4 that you're kind of debating. And then after that is the process of, let me talk to you on the phone. And, are you a diva? Are you fun? Or are we blending? Are we gelling? Do you hate me? Do I hate you? So it's all about that kind of a personal factor.
Doug, what do you get a lot of inquiries from filmmakers that are, having a lower budget, and are they like emailing you all the time, or your colleagues like, how do I get people? Can you cast for free? Or like,
Oh, almost every single thing has been a referral from a friend.
Right.
Who
really?
thinks that I would be a good fit for them, and they either read that script, or they're having maybe trouble getting script off the ground. If it's something low budget, and it's kind of like, can you come on and maybe attach some talent, or because there's several different ways that the casting process can go. The traditional way is obviously like, I take a deposit to start work, and then we know X amount of people are going to get paid at X amount of time and the movie is going to go. But there's also a lot of times where we're expected to kind of produce, meaning find the talent who can bring more money to the table, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's like, it's become a job where, which is not a problem, it's just interesting. It's become a job where it's not just about knowing talent and actors and talent pool. It's also about connecting dots and trying to get the filmmaker's vision served. But I've always been really fortunate that my friends who refer things know my sensibilities, and my dream has always been to surround myself with indie artists and that type of Hollywood. And I feel extremely blessed I've been able to work in it so much. But the scripts I usually get are in line with something that I read, and I'm like, yeah, I want to do this, and we might not have the money right now, but this is great material. So there's a way to get it made.
So this is kind of in the area of a question I got earlier for you is, so say you do get someone, a bigger person, an A-list actor, or at least a, recognizable actor or actress, and you as an independent filmmaker are always looking for your film to be put in front of as many people as possible, or your script or your log line, or what is it ever appropriate, or when is it appropriate to possibly ask one of your bigger actors or actresses that might be able to bring some clout to a project to be a part of the producing team, or become an executive producer? Or like, where does your head feel about
My
that?
head and my feeling, and this is up for debate, is that I don't think it is appropriate. I think if they want to, they know that they have their position and they have their name in the business. And if they love something and they want to contribute more, or feel that if maybe they wrote a check for 50 grand, they could get like a higher quality budget, or set or something like that, sure. But that would never, I would never think that would be an acceptable thing to bring to them. First and foremost, they're an actor, and they're there to do that script and that part, and they're going to put their heart and soul into it. But what I am a very big fan of is offering people drastically different roles than they play. So I often explain to my directors, if they write a comedy with a quirky Jewish woman, I don't
My
think we
favorite
should
comedy.
give it right out to it. I don't think we should be offering it out to Barbara Streisand. I think we got to find somebody who does hour-long dramas, and like, let's think of a cool crime show that's on TV right now, because that actor will have a value, and let them do what they were born to do, which is act, which is what they do. It's what they know how to play other characters. And so many times actors just get pigeonholed, and their agents get the same call for the same type of material all the time. So when you let somebody get to prove their creativity and get to work outside of the box that they are constantly put in through no fault of their own, but rather the economics of the business itself,
Right.
they eat that up, and they will sign on, and they will work for a fraction of their quote sometimes. If they know you can't afford them, that doesn't matter. They're like, this is a role I gotta do.
The best example is Uncut Gem from Adam Sandler. That's the best example.
Otherwise, you just have to have money. If you want, Barbara Streisand to play this Jewish mother, then be prepared to buckle up a very high sum of money or mortgage a couple houses, and maybe she will.
Yeah, take out a few credit cards. Uncut Gems, that's a great example of that, for real. I
Yeah, and
saw that twice.
Adam Sandler, it's completely left field. But that's the thing now, and I think, I don't know, TV is kind of the best way to prove that point. Is just now, I think name is not as strong as it was. No one really cares about name. It's all about concept. Yes, you want a name to sell it, but now I feel it's just, if you're going to make something, it needs to be about an original concept that has never been done before. And that's going to be, if you have that original concept, that's going to go viral. People will talk about it, and that's going to really, go big. But yeah, the name aspect of it, I guess that's what blocks so many filmmakers, is that they wish, of course I wish, sometimes I had a big name, but you cannot wait for that to happen to feel creative. You know what I mean? You have to go forward, and you don't be stopped by that. Otherwise, it's going to be 7 years that you're going to be home writing scripts, and you're not going to direct anything because you're just waiting for that big name thing. So people, they feel discouraged so easily now. So you have to just keep moving and moving. And even if it's success, it doesn't matter. Or if it fails, it doesn't matter. At least you shot something, you got better, you experienced, you met new people, you're doing stuff like this right now, and just you talk about your knowledge and what worked, what didn't work, and then you just move on to the next. And then at one point, if you do good quality work, I believe that something's going to happen, that at one point something's going to catch, but you have to go make them and prove that you can, that you're productive.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think personally, I believe that a lot of it comes down to perspective. And if you are just coming at production, at filmmaking or television or any type of project like this, if you have a perspective of, I want to grow my network, I want to break down a stigma, I want to, if my goal is to work with a big name actor, I feel like if you're working towards your goal, then it all will come together. And if you're, getting the right people on the bus, then, it all will come together. So, is
I
there
would
anything
agree with that.
You have to be go ahead.
I was going to say, helpful advice for young actors as well. As here's the thing, like Pascal said, he got 60,000 submissions for his movie that didn't even pay anybody what the scale would be. So you think about that, and you have to go, well, what makes me unique? So tap into what makes you a unique human, and find that and run with that, because that's going to be the thing that'll set you apart of the crowd. Because the fact is, the market is so incredibly saturated. How do you stand out in the competition? Well, it should just be because of who you are.
Yeah, and I always say that, acting, I think it's 90% you and 10% acting. Like it's all about your looks, your voice, your talent, the way you speak, the way you move. So my best advice would be for people who wants to be actors is just, you cannot take it personally. It's sometimes you can be the best actor. There was one girl for my first film. She nailed it. She's amazing, but she didn't have the right vibe. She just didn't feel well. And then when it was time to match it with the male actor, it was not blending, but she was amazing. It's just, it didn't feel right for her at the moment. I would love to work with her later, but it's all about that role needs to fit you perfectly. And sometimes actors think I can do anything, and no, you cannot really do anything. There, you know, I can put a hat and be Indiana Jones. It doesn't mean that it feels right. You know what I mean? It's just I can whip it, but it doesn't mean that it's gonna feel right on screen. So it's the same thing with actors. You know, anybody can do anything, but it doesn't mean that it's gonna feel right and that the energy on screen it's gonna be real.
So from that perspective, of I guess both an actor and a filmmaker trying to cast, we'll say I would like to know, both in Los Angeles locally, like what would you say the best way, Doug, to cast locally, like amongst your network without knowing a lot of people, if that makes sense?
Put out a breakdown, right? There's a website called breakdownexpress.com, and it's what every actor should be on, and it's what every casting director uses. And when they put something out, especially as you're building your resume, you want to find these smaller, cool indies, or you just want to work begets
How
work.
do you stand out? So like Pascal said, he had what was it, 65,000?
Yeah.
How do you stand out in that?
That's a great question, because that's like, I learned because every year I do more and more projects and movies. So therefore I have an internal database that I would look at too. And you're saying watch it, I guess you just would want to watch as many as you can. But even that, my thing is kind of like, as we get into this world of self-taping becoming regular, self-tape doesn't give me the vibe of who you are in a room, especially because to me, chemistry is paramount. You could have the best actor for role A and the very best actor for role B, but if they are not vibing together, that's not going to work, and that's going to come across as awkward on camera, and that happens. So it's tough because I'm not a fan of self-taping. I'm a fan that it gives people more opportunities. I'm not a fan of picking your actor solely off of one tape that they're giving you a version of what they think that character is in X amount of time. You don't get to shake their hand. You don't get to say hello. You don't get a sense of who they are as a person. And that's what it's about.
But like, you're picking up literally on their charisma, on their in-person charisma and chemistry with actor B.
You got to feel it, right? And it's really hard to know if you give someone some sides. They could coach on it. Like Javier Bardem, Benicio del Toro's a notorious, terrible auditioner. And for years, it really held him back in some ways. And he's just known to, but he's one of the greatest actors alive. So some people could go to the best coach, get the best lighting, do the best audition, hit it beat by beat by beat. Are they going to be able to sustain that for an entire 30 days working on a film, being that lead character? If you can't tell their essence, or if I don't get time to talk to them and get to know a little bit more about them, like, I don't know, I wouldn't put my money on it.
So it's almost like how an actor can be an actor, but they're not necessarily a celebrity, where it's like you can have an actor that's an actor, but they're not necessarily great at auditioning because they're two different things.
They're completely two different animals. Yeah. So if you're starting out, as many scene classes as you're in, also please make sure you're in a good audition technique class, because you don't want to get held back or lose a role because you do some really dumb thing that you just weren't thinking about in your head during the scene, like some technical little issue, like your eye went over here when it shouldn't have, or you don't want to lose a part because of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And at the same time, from, you know, just to give my experience, because for me, I do all my casting via distance. I never meet them in person. I meet them in person day one when it's time to shoot. So my perspective to you, when you have the luxury to meet them in person because you live in the same city, that's great. But at the same time, you have to trust your guts that first. And one thing is that so many people put so much effort into having the best freaking headshots, like it's gold, it's diamond, and then when you see them on tape, they look horrible, they don't look the same, they just look completely different, and then you have to go back and check the picture to make sure is it the right person. So that's the thing for me. I always say you need to look as good, you know, look the part. If I picked you because on that picture, I hope that I'm going to receive that person, at least I'm going to have that vibe. And then, but yeah, just as soon as they do a scene, you have a good sense of, is it working? Do they get the material? And then I think with just one phone call, you get a sense of, is it going to well, or FaceTime, whatever, you have a good sense. But after that, you have to trust, you know what I mean? You just have to hope that it's going to work. Even if you talk to them for 5 hours, it's on day one when it's time to shoot. And then there's a thing, when you do a film for 20 days or 25 days, day one, everyone is so excited. Everyone is just like, yeah, oh my God, I love you so much. And then near the end, it's like, get the freaking out. I'm tired. I'm gone. I'm going home. So you need to find those person that, you know, that they're going to have the stamina to make those films. So everyone can, yeah, everyone wants to have a role. Everyone wants to audition. Everyone wants to get a role. But once they get it, they have to put the work. And so that's one thing you have to really find. But after that, what I'm saying is that you need to have the trust, and you hope, you know, that it's going to be good and that it's going to work.
And to elaborate, please never take it personal, actors, when you hit a home run or you go in and you know you did a fantastic job and you still don't get the role. There are a million conversations that go on behind closed doors that have nothing to do with you, and you don't know the politics at play between the financier, a producer. People, I think it's a cliche, but I have seen people lose roles because they look like somebody's ex-boyfriend or girlfriend. And I've also seen people be exactly what was written on the paper to such a degree that you're like, how else could anybody get this role? And they still don't get it. But just keep showing up and doing your work, because people like me will then recognize you and see you again and again. And when you're consistent and wonderful and you show up and just do the work, like, people like me will be behind those closed doors fighting for you. And we might not always win the fight, but you just want to get those army of people who see your potential and your worth. And eventually that work will beget more work and beget more work. And then before you know it, you know, 10 years of overnight success.
Yeah, and just to fill what you just said, even for me, I have a folder of names and tapes that I loved, that maybe we didn't work on that project, but it's there. And I know I talked to them. You know, they're super nice person. They killed it. It was just not right, but it's there in my folder. And then if, you know, I'll always remember them. So the same thing Doug said, you never just focus on killing it. Go home after that, move to the next thing, because after that, it's out of your hands. So there's no reason to just, you know, feel bad and just like, oh my God, did I do good or bad? No, it's out of your hand. And like you said, you don't know what's behind closed door. Maybe you killed it, the director didn't like your blue eyes, or maybe it's just the tone of your voice. Maybe it's just, you know, you just never know. And it can be such stupid excuse as, oh, you looks like my ex. But yeah, anything can happen, you know?
For a short form series that I was casting I was directing and executive producing a few years ago. And there's this girl, I loved her so much. She was so incredible. She did everything right, except our other actors were like 2 feet taller than her. And now I'm great friends with her. And I'm like, I always bring up, I'm like, I'm so sorry you didn't get that part. Like, I remembered her. Now we're just friends because I liked her so much in her audition. But I think I have one more question to add on. This is one of the audience questions. And this one is kind of directed towards you, Doug. Does someone need to have a good network in Los Angeles to cast from LA agencies? I am an independent filmmaker in Europe, and I wonder how to reach out. So do you think, you know, Google agencies and start reaching out to people, or what would be your best advice?
Can you, I might need to re-understand. I don't know if I understood the exact nuance of the question.
You have to have a good network within Los Angeles to cast Los Angeles actors.
Like as a casting director or as a director or as a producer?
I believe as an independent filmmaker.
Oh, meaning so the director would want to cast their own thing. The thing that helps with a good CD, which is why I always think it's worth the money, because of a lot of people, even if you can't afford their quote, you know, there's a lot of casting directors who make a lot more money than I do too, who have work on serious budgets, but sometimes they'll do, you know, they'll work for a fraction as well, just like actors if they love something. It helps immensely to have a casting director who's known within the business. So if you're from Europe and you're casting in LA, the problem or the worry I would see is that people won't be submitting on your breakdown because they don't know who you are. So having a casting director brings a legitimacy to the project where you know, okay, we're going, this person is behind it. And at that point, agents are a lot more comfortable than submitting their talent. It also is a thing where, like, you know, a CD can call the agents and they'll take my calls because I have people there and they know me. Whereas you could be a wonderful up and coming director, but if the nepotism is so much that if they don't know you, they're just not going to take your call. And it's not an ego thing. It's more of a, there's not enough hours in the time thing.
Right.
So that just pretty much goes back to growing your network and meeting the right people. And yeah, that's basically the gist of what I get from most of these panels that I either sit on or moderate or watch is it's who you know, not what you know. Obviously, what you know betters your project in the end and the end product, but getting to the point of actually getting to make something, it's being personable and being charismatic and not being scared to just talk to people or send that first email or just getting your name out there so people find you legitimate and then want to work with you in the end.
And
So
passion will always attract, right? People read that, they want to be around
passion breeds
that
passion. That has been my motto for the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years. Passion breeds passion. If I'm excited, you're going to get excited. You're going to pick up on those vibes.
And as a filmmaker point of view, you know, I didn't know Doug, but he watched my film. And now he's in my contact now and we chit chat and I'm sure he's going to watch my new thing and we're going to probably, if we can work together in the future. So sometime it's about making the work and not thinking about, oh, I need to make that connection or whatever. Just do the work and then it's going to attract people. I didn't know him, but he wrote me and he loved the film. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. Let's keep
I
in touch.
just saw his film and I just wrote him just to say, I don't know who you are, but your movie was incredible and it spoke to me and it touched me and please just keep doing you. And that was the beginning of like, who knows, but that was just genuine passion where
Now he's got a
I
casting
couldn't
director
not
in
write
LA.
him. And you can't not tell. And that's one of my favorite things about working in the business. I get to go to so many, A-list carpets and events and all these big fancy premieres. But for me, it's like, I love getting to tell somebody in person to their face that their work affected me. And to me, that's such a joy of what I do.
No, and I appreciate when you wrote me that. I was super touched and I didn't know him, but I was just like, wow. And I replied to him and we start chatting and then he invited me to this meeting right now. So you just never know. So I believe that once you do the work, it's going to attract certain people and there's things you cannot predict. There's things that you cannot force. It needs to be organic. And so that's why as a filmmaker point of view, you need to just focus on doing the work, put it out there. After that, there's no big events, even for me, sometimes I'm trying to force things, but you have to learn to just say, hey, it's cool, let it breathe, let it take its own life and move to the next one. And there's a thing, people will watch the third one and they're going to go back to watch the second one. They're going to go back to watch the first one. So the more work you have, and then if just one really explode, then all your past work is going to come back to life again. And so yeah, you just have to really focus on making the work. And because if you just start thinking, I need a name, I need this, I need that, it's going to be, it can be frustrating because you're not going to move and you're going to realize it's already been 5 months. You're trying to get something together and it didn't move forward. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I feel like that's great advice to leave on. Do you have anything else you'd like to partake with?
Thank you for having me. It's been a very enlightening conversation.
Absolutely. It was so nice to meet you guys. So I do have a few extra questions if you guys have time. Yeah. All right. So where'd they all go? Ooh, this is a great one. And I'm very curious about this answer. Does Instagram numbers have any effect on casting now at least
I can take this away. It used to, and I'm so happy we're getting back to a shift where it doesn't, because I will tell you, one of my biggest heartbreaks in my casting careers when I was new and starting out, and I worked for a big production company and we were doing a project that Bret Easton Ellis wrote, who's one of my favorite writers, and it was his directorial debut, and I felt so excited to be involved in that project. And I had learned that the money that the powers that be, the money that talks at the end of the day, like Bret was all about hiring real actors. And unfortunately, the finance company disagreed and wanted YouTube stars. So I think they weren't trained actors. They didn't have the nuance or the ability to really tap into what was on the script. And I think if we had hired real actors and not gone that direction, I think there would have been a season 2, a season 3. I think it would have been on TV. And what happened was at that time, if you had a certain following, which is pretty low at the time, this was like years ago. So if you had 100,000 K on Instagram, you you got to come in and read, and I had to come in my office and put you on tape and read with you. And not to belittle everybody, but I mean, I'm not the numbers are the numbers, and 9 times out of 10 I would just be so frustrated and be like, you're taking away a spot from an actor who's been studying this and studying this craft, and now they don't get to come audition for me for something because you have digital followers, so you're spending time building a fan base rather than building your craft. And for a while, it was very discouraging because I thought that was just going to be the way it would continue to go. But finally, there's this counterculture back of that's not relevant anymore as much.
It's almost like they have their own lane more so now than having to force their way into traditional forms of production and content. So yeah, I'm very happy to hear that. So incredibly happy to hear that. Because
Yeah,
I'm
if
always
you want to act, go study it and become a good actor. Otherwise, all you're doing is diluting what could be a fantastic project, because even if you have 2 lines on film, if you're not very good, you remember those 2 lines. Like, you as an audience, you watch that and your brain disengages for those 2 seconds, and then you're like, let me look at my phone. You get pulled out of the movie. So that's why I critically believe that every actor, and I've worked for years for a fantastic casting director named Shannon McCanyon, who I really look up to, and her philosophy that I completely agree with is, she wants to cast even those 2-line parts, even those parts that normally little what we call extras casting directors cast, because she feels that every line in a movie is important and every actor should be perfect for that part. And I love that philosophy and that idea.
Yeah, me too. I'm incredibly grateful to know that there are people out there that feel the same way. So I think I've got one more here. How would you go about developing an interpersonal relationship with an organization such as Film Capital? So, so when it comes to getting money, I know Pascal, you said that you're kind of self-funding now after that last experience. But Doug, what has been your experience within the financing aspect? You said you're getting into producing a little bit now.
Yeah, I have things I'm bringing money into the table, but my experience has usually been not too much, because realistically, I don't start work really until I'm paid. So all that stuff that goes on behind the scenes, but money comes from many different places, and that's a long and hard question to answer that I'm not really an expert on, because I don't always know where the money comes from when I start a project.
And
Oh,
where for me the money came from mostly was it's private investor, because I know the tricky thing is I live in Montreal, but I'm shooting mostly in the United States, or I'm shooting in Europe. So there's no way I can ask money for the governments or funding and stuff like that in the traditional sense, because I'm doing things more differently. So, and the fact that you're doing such a low budget scale, they're always going to say no, no matter what. So that's why it's either private investor that believe in you, that are friend, and say, hey, here's 5 grand, 10 grand, 15 grand, whatever. And you go make your film like that, because the risk is not that big. And it's way easier to get those money than waiting 2 years on a grant that there's probably no way you're going to have, because you're doing things either differently or you don't have names and stuff like that. So that's one thing. Either you put your own money into it, because it's such a, based on that channel, that seminar, it's about make a film under 10 grand. So save a little bit of money and go do it. Or either you ask people around here and there, and everyone is equal, everyone is producer, everyone is going to work together. But I would suggest that just save your own money. For 10 grand, everyone can have 10 grand if you just save. You know what I mean? It doesn't take that long, and you're gonna have that money and you can go make. And that's the thing, 10 grand can be maximum. My new film postcard that I shot in 3 countries was 7 grand. And I lost 1,500 because her company, like a plane company, went bankrupt. So I had to rebook another flight. So technically it would have cost me 5 grand. So anybody can have 5 grand, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as far as Film Capital goes, I feel like it's more of it empowers independent filmmakers. So the more that you can interact with people that are trying to make your dreams come true, I feel like that is the best thing you can do for yourself and following your passions. So
Yeah. And the good thing with actors, who wants to be actors or whatever, but just in Los Angeles, the thing that I love is that it's the biggest pool of actors. You know, when it's time to make a film, 1 year after that you did your last casting, it's gonna be completely new people. Like you're gonna have 60,000 new submission that looks completely different from 1 year or 2 years ago. So that's one thing that I love is I'm kind of excited when it's time to do the casting. You just don't know what you're gonna get. So it's like, hey, let me do my breakdown, and then you wait, and then you wake up and you have 20 or 30,000 and whatever, and you see so much great faces. So people are great, someone sucks, whatever. But overall, it's just so cool that it's the diversity is just huge, and you have new people every freaking day. So that's one thing that Los Angeles is good at, is bringing new artists.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, it was so nice to meet you guys. Pascal, I hope when you come to Los Angeles next that I'm around and we can get together. Yeah, absolutely. Doug, when you get back, I'm here.
Happy Con, everybody. Happy. Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you all for joining.
Bye. Thank you, guys.
Bye.